Hello, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to create a short video here. I'm going to try to keep this to about 5 minutes to talk to you about opinion leaders and influencers. And just to try to broaden our perspective on this area and to get you to think more precisely about what you mean when you're talking about an influencer or an opinion leader. Okay, so how is that? So the term opinion leaders has been around a long time. But in academia, it really became defined and it became a popular topic of study in the 1950s. And there was a very famous book that came out. The book was called Personal Influence, and it was published in 1955. And it had originally been interested in voting, and voting was part of the study, but it was also interested in how do people decide what to purchase. And at this time, of course, it was early marketing research, which really drove a lot of issues and interests in psychology and sociology and communication research. So the popular belief about how the media influenced us was that the media directly influenced people. So it would tell you to buy a car and you'd buy a car, or encourage you to buy a particular brand of soap or something like that. Well, personal influence introduced a new idea to this sequence and introduced the idea of opinion leaders and suggested that a lot of the influence in the media came not directly from the media, but from opinion leaders who were people who read the news, read the newspaper, and passed on that information and influence to everybody else. In particular, at this time, this opinion leader that they defined was someone who they felt could be influential in marketing products for the home. Okay. This idea of an opinion leader is much, much different from what we've been talking about in class as an influencer. This opinion leader was not someone famous. In my classes, if I ask for the names of some opinion leaders today, I get names of influential people. I might get the name of a politician. Invariably, I get the name Taylor Swift. Sure, she's influential. But opinion leaders, as it was originally defined, was not the Taylor Swifts of the world. Instead, it was the one person in 10 who had disproportionate influence over the people around them. This could be somebody who is respected for their knowledge about local restaurants, about sports, about politics, about which appliances to buy for the home. And just because a person was an opinion leader in one topic doesn't mean they'd be an opinion leader in another. This is a very different idea than the Taylor Swift opinion leader or the influencer we've been talking about today. It's the local person that you and I know who just knows a bit more and helps us out. So the definition came from this book, Personal Influence, part played by people in the flow of mass communication, an old classic, but we don't read it much in universities now. And they were interested in these smaller leaders, if you will. Now, what I tell my students today is I don't care who you define as opinion leader, as long as you think about what you're doing. So if you're interested in the Taylor Swift as the opinion leader in a campaign you're doing, fine. But talk about that and identify that kind of an opinion leader. If instead you're interested in a campaign that empowers local people to influence their neighbors, that's a very different kind of opinion leader. It's the original conception of the opinion leader and not as the definition has changed, to what the definition has changed today. So how do we find these people? Well, there are three general ways that we find them. The first way we find them is we ask people. And we do surveys where we ask people large numbers of questions. And this is a set of questions from a survey that I did asking people who would be local political opinion leaders, not opinion leaders in sports or fashion or anything else, but just in local politics. We ask people these questions, and if somebody answered yes to four or more of these 11 questions, we classified them as an opinion leader. That turns out to be between 10 and 15% of all Americans. That's our idea of what an opinion leader is. This is how we measured it. You can use similar scales, similar survey indices like these to measure opinion leaders in things such as, and you can pause the video if you want to take a look at this slide now. Otherwise, I will move on. Here, which is a whole set of questions asking people about fashion. And the field of fashion is very interested in opinion leaders. It matters a lot. They study opinion leaders a great deal, defining those people who lead fashion trends and whom others look to for advice. Again, I'm going to move on from this slide really quickly, but it's a bunch of questions about whether or not people look to you for advice about fashion. And the next slide is the same scale, only in this case, it's sports. People have done this as well to identify people who are sports opinion leaders. So the first way in which we try to identify opinion leaders is by asking them. The second way is by asking others. So we do similar surveys and we ask people not what they do, but who do you look to? Who do you go to for advice? Who do you ask for help, etc. And the third way is that we look at what they do. So we might identify opinion leaders as being bloggers or being local public officials or being the head of our local neighborhood committee or something like that. But generally, there's three ways in which we can identify opinion leaders. Now, these are really quite different from influencers. And I like to talk a little bit about them in a class like this because you might consider trying to use opinion leaders in your campaign plan as well as influencers, because I think they're quite different. Influencers, on the other hand, are really broadly defined here in the United States right now, and they're defined as a group of people who, frankly, are attached to social media. You don't hear the term influencer used much for people who are not on social media. They also tend to be people who we think have broad influence, and often that's influence in marketing and selling products, fashion, beauty products, and other things. But those are the two which really got this idea started. They are not people that you and I know personally, but they have large followings. And that tends to be one of the ways that we find and define influencers. And I think the way that most of you are finding influencers for your campaigns. And then finally, at least as how influencers were initially defined and thought about, it really is about marketing, really is about selling products. And it's only now that organizations that are interested in selling ideas are using influencers to sell other products and other types of campaigns, such as campaigns about health or politics or any number of other things. All right, that's it. I just wanted to give you that extra definition to hopefully give you a little more ammunition, a few more ideas for putting together your campaign for this class. Thanks.